Welcome, Drink with James, episode 112. Episode 112. Excited to have you guys here. Excited people are buying tickets like crazy to the Influencer Conference. We're not almost selling out, but we are on the path to selling out. If you're thinking about coming, I would suggest buying your ticket before the end of August. You can split it into 3 payments that way. Also, it's going from $300 to $400 in September. So you've got, by the time this comes out, a week and a half or so to buy a ticket at the discounted rate. Tim is a shark. He is not going to sell you a ticket at the discounted rate past September 1st. So make sure you get those in. I will say again, because every week someone says to me, I wish this was a podcast. It is a podcast. It is called Forecast. I think Tim is now putting that in the description, linking it. So if you don't want to look at my face, again, you could do that way. Keep sending questions. I have been requesting questions on my social as well as on Fours the day that we are posting, or the day that we're filming rather. But as always, you can email me, you can email Tim, you can tweet us, you can also put it in the comments. Put it in the comments in the YouTube, put it in the comments on an Instagram. Put a question somewhere, we'll find it. Maybe, probably. So keep those questions coming, because again, without them, what am I? I'm just talking. So what else is going on this week? I am wearing my Thom Browne suit for the first time in probably 2 months. It's 82 degrees today, which is like essentially fall in New York City. It's been unbelievably hot, and this suit is wool, and it's not worth ruining an incredibly expensive piece of clothing with your full body sweat. So I just put it up for the summer. So I was excited to put it back on. The annoying thing is that this is the most uncomfortable piece of clothing I own, and the tightest suit I have around the waist because it comes up so high above your belly button. So I usually wear it in the winter, but in the winter I'm like 10 pounds heavier. So like it was nice to put it on this morning and be like feeling like fancy free. Anyway. You all can commiserate. When a pair of pants, when your tight pants fit you, literally nothing in the world can affect you. You are just like, this is going to be a good day. Good hair day is 2. Tight pants fitting you well day, for me, that's number 1. That's the pinnacle for me. What else was I shitting on recently? Oh, here we go. Something that I am ready for the end of. And I don't know that this is going to be controversial, but I think a lot of you will roll your eyes, but I can't see you, so I don't care. Self-care. Every time I open Instagram, it is just vomiting self-care everywhere. I think it is great that we're talking about taking care of yourself more. I think that it is great to understand that we are beings that can break both mentally and physically, and that there is a certain amount of self-care. It feels like people's full-time job. And I don't know why in the rush to self-care, people have abandoned our first, type of self-care, which is just drinking. If you have problems, you could just have a nightcap every night. This is how I take care of myself. And there is an air of judgment in the self-care community where they say that my bourbon, scotch, Manhattans are not part of a effective self-care regime, and I resent it personally. So yes, if I could see less about that every single day in my Instagram feed, that would be great. I think a big part of self-care might be not talking about it and just engaging in it. That's just something to think about. Too much of a good thing is not good. And I think that everyone is talking about it so much ad nauseum that it is easy to just skip over it. So I think if it is great to raise awareness, and it's great to give tips on what you're doing to stay clear-headed and confident and feeling mentally and physically fit. I love all of that. I'm saying from a consumer standpoint, from someone that follows a decent amount of influencers, it's starting to feel like a lot to me. But again, I'm the dude who hates Positano, so you don't have to listen. Let's move on. Okay. Also, just really quick, Supreme can fucking just... yesterday, Supreme bought an advertisement in a newspaper, and people lost their fucking minds like they had looked up to the heavens and Jesus had come down and blessed the earth again, and he was wearing a fucking Supreme shirt. I'm like, they bought an advertisement in the New York Post, and everyone on the internet is like, Supreme is the most innovative brand on God's green earth. I think all of these menswear brands, not menswear, I think these streetwear brands, like look at Supreme, look at Virgil with Off-White and Louis Vuitton and all this stuff. There is a point of where you oversaturate yourself, and if you are, this is I think an important lesson for influencers. If you are trading in your cultural capital, if you are trading in your like ability to be interesting or cool, if you give that capital to everyone, you will not have any more to give out, and nobody will want it. And I would be shocked if in 5 years Virgil and Supreme and all these brands, Balenciaga, Venmont, were still relevant and people cared about them, because it's just relentless. It is everywhere. And I think that it is something I've also seen sometimes with influencers. They get bigger and they do a jewelry collaboration, and then they do a makeup collaboration, and then they do a jeans collaboration, and then they do a t-shirt collaboration, and then they do this, and then they do this, and then they start their brand, and then they do this, and then they run a conference, and it's just like, it gets to be too much. You can stretch yourself too thin. And I'm done ranting. I'm just gonna go into questions now. So who knows how much of that Tim will keep. Question number 1, how can I expand my newsletter distribution list? Last week, if you didn't hear about it, we talked about creating, using newsletters, not only for your followers and for consumers, but also for brands. So I'll kind of touch on both sides. How can you build your consumer newsletter distribution list? If you're thinking about doing a giveaway or something like that, I would maybe focus less on Instagram followers, take a break from that, and try and work with another influencer to build your newsletter following up, because again, that is something that you always have, that you can always take with you no matter what the platform is. So, you know, if you are someone that is using giveaways to grow your Instagram audience, maybe every 4th giveaway, first of all, you probably shouldn't be doing 4 giveaways, but let's just entertain a world in which you're doing 4 giveaways a year. Let's have, 25% of those focus on your newsletter growth rather than just your Instagram. Again, doesn't matter the platform, doesn't matter what happens in this world, as long as that person doesn't change their email address, which most adults don't, you get to keep that, you get to take it with you wherever you go, and it will always be valuable. So focus on building that, continue to have something unique. If I follow your blog and I follow your Instagram and your newsletter is just a synopsis of the last 3 posts that you did, why am I getting your newsletter? I could just go to your blog. So make sure the newsletter has something unique. Make sure it gives a little bit more. I know it's frustrating because you're already doing Instagram, Insta Stories, your blog, you're working on YouTube, you're doing Pinterest, you're doing the brand deals, you're negotiating, you're working contracts, blah, 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 you're trying to start a line, you're doing all these things. It's annoying to create unique content for your newsletter, but just think about all the photos you don't use on a blog post, or think about anything that maybe isn't something that you would put on the blog. The newsletter that always gets kind of heralded in the space from a brand side is the Of a Kind founders. They had a newsletter that took off like crazy. If you don't subscribe, you should subscribe to their newsletter. It's just very simple. Every week, I think it's 3 links from each of them, stuff that they found interesting, products, articles, whatever it might be. I don't think there's any commentary. It's just 3 links. They have impeccable taste, so the newsletter did very well, but it didn't seem like a lot of work, and it paid off huge. Jesus, I sound like fucking Trump. It paid off, and it wasn't a huge amount of work. So you can provide unique content for your newsletter subscribers without having to put in a huge amount of work. Now, for that brand newsletter we talked about last week, how do you build that? Easy one is just like put it in your signature. I think that most of the email communication that you do is probably with brands, less with your followers. Maybe I'm wrong, but you could always have it in your newsletter, in your email signature. That is one way to do it. Certainly, I think I would add people that you've worked with, or ask them if you can add them. You can also throw up something on Insta Stories with a swipe up and say, hey, any brands following me, feel free to subscribe to, I have a new newsletter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You will undoubtedly get consumers who also subscribe to that, but it would be hard to stop people from doing that, so that might just be something that you have to deal with. But making sure that you, if you do post something on your stories or something, you say this is specifically for brand professionals or people working in influencer marketing. So it's a longer game, but I don't think, whereas if you have 100,000 followers on Instagram and you might want your newsletter to have 10,000 subscribers to it, I think your brand newsletter could have 200 and you would be great, because these are people you're trying to sell to. So it doesn't have to be huge, it just has to be targeted and valuable. So that is all. Question number 2. Any tips for determining whether an event is worth my time? FOMO gets the best of me, but a lot of the times it feels like the 1 to 2 hours is better spent elsewhere. Look, event fatigue is real. You could go to 3 events a night every night, especially if you're in New York or LA. It is relentless, and it certainly can start to feel like it is not worth your time. And in a lot of ways, is it something that your followers are interested in? Let's go back and remember that we're doing this for our followers. We have to provide something that is either entertaining or educational. And is this event going to entertain or educate? Maybe a few a week, but are 10 a week? Do I want to see you go to 10 events a week? Probably not. But can you really go to those events and not post something on your stories or something? Is the brand going to be like, I saw this person, but they didn't post on their stories? Like, that's not cool. So I would try and be choosy now, a caveat that by saying, if you are a more established influencer and you've got great brand relationships and you're working with brands, I think you can be choosy. I think you can be choosy and go to the events that, one, if a brand pays you for anything, I would go to that event. If they give you 1 sponsored post a year and they invite you to 2 events, I would go to those events and I would cover it on stories. If you don't do that, I can't understand you. That is so simple. It's not asking a lot. You don't have that much to do. Just go. We're speaking for established influencers now. And then if it's a brand that you really want to work with that you haven't yet, go to the event, go early, talk to the brand person, scat, say you've got a dinner reservation, but you just had to show up. So if you're an up-and-coming influencer, I'd go to as many as you can until they start to feel like they're not valuable. You don't have to spend 1 to 2 hours. The question said 1 to 2 hours could be better spent elsewhere. I think you could do an event in 30 minutes and be in and out and make your presence known, talk to the brand, take a few photos, laugh a little bit, play in the photo booth, whatever they have, and say, thank you so much, but I have a dinner reservation, I've got to go, I just wanted to stop by. That line always works. It gets you in early, out early. You shouldn't be spending 2 hours at an event unless you're paid to spend 2 hours at the event. Or it's just a lot of fun, like it's a 4 event, and those are awesome. Yeah, I think in general, if you're doing stuff and it feels like a waste of time, it probably is. And each person's, Jesus, it's been a long day of talking. Each person's path to success is different, and one person might be really outgoing and love events and love networking, and so events work great for them. One person might be painfully shy and they hate events, and then don't go. It's not going to work for you. That's totally fine. The way other people do it is not the way you have to do it. So just if it feels worthless, stop going. Last question. Question number 3. Hardest number to reach, 1K, 10K, or 100? This is a clever question, one that I don't think we've answered before in our 112 episodes. I've been thinking about it. It was on the board last week and I didn't answer it. I've been thinking a little bit about it. And I think that, like, frustratingly, they're all really hard. So getting from 0 to a K is like, you have to get people that don't know you. So I think you're just learning, trying to figure it out. 1 to 10, I think, is really, really hard because that's where you have to start to be consistent. You have to do all these things, and you have to have the mental shift to be like, it can be embarrassing to be actively trying to grow an audience if you're at 2,000 followers. Because people, like your friends, it's not a thing yet. You're not like an influencer with 200K and all your friends think that's super cool and, like, you know, you're getting invited to all this shit and they love it. It's like, oh, do you see what Tim's doing? Like, it's kind of weird. He's like trying to be an influencer. Like, oh, he's trying to be an influencer. Like, I have heard that conversation 50 times with people. Just like normal people talking about their friends who are trying to make a go of it. So, like, I think the 1 to 10 is tough from a personal standpoint of just being like, this is what I want to do, and this is where I want, this is like something I'm interested in, and I'm going to go for this. Because to get from 1 to 10, you have to act like you have 100K in some ways. You have to be consistent. You have to be doing all this stuff. You have to be like acting like an influencer, but you don't have the following yet to back it up. And so it can feel ridiculous and it can feel like a waste of your time. And so I think it is really hard in that 1 to 10 to keep going because you don't have the big following. You're not getting brand deals. You're not getting free clothes. You're not getting anything. And it feels like, wow, this is so much work for almost no benefit. So that's really hard. I think getting to 100K is just flat out hard, you know, especially today. There are a lot of amazing influencers that I love, that I follow, who I started following a year ago, and they're at 40K and they're at 50K now. It is slow going out there. It is hard to grow. Anyone who can go from, you know, starting an Instagram account in the last couple of years and over 100K now, I tip my hat to you because there is something special there. I do think that, you know, getting to that 100K is probably less about tactics and, you know, doing everything right as it is about just having a really unique point of view that is like in sync with where popular culture is. And kind of riding that wave. And so I think in some ways you're less responsible for it than getting from 1 to 10. I find that most people who are, you know, have a big following, it just kind of took off for them at some point. And usually that's, you know, between that 10 and 100K. So frustratingly, they're all very difficult in their own way. Getting from 100 to a million, 100 to 150, it's all really hard, and I hope that I hope these episodes in some way are helpful to y'all because I know there's not a huge amount of advice out there on how to do this, and I feel for you. I've had an Instagram account for 8 years and it's at 22,000, so like I know this isn't easy. But thanks for coming back and watching. Send us your questions. Cheers.